Hey California Real Estate, welcome to NHD Academy, where we demystify natural hazard disclosures. I'm Patrick McClellan, and this is a video series for California real estate agents and consumers. If you watched our episode about California's NHD law, you know that a real estate seller must disclose to the prospective buyer whether the sale property is in any of 6 important natural hazard zones: 2 flood, 2 fire, and 2 seismic zones. In this episode, we'll explain one of those flood hazards, the Special Flood Hazard Area, also known as the High-Risk FEMA Flood Zone. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, administers the National Flood Insurance Program, or the NFIP. And Congress created the NFIP back in the 1960s for the purpose of mapping flood zones across the nation and to encourage communities in those high-risk zones to minimize their flood risk. When a city participates in the NFIP through flood-safe building codes or floodplain management, the NFIP rewards that effort by offering affordable flood insurance to the city's residents. And generally speaking, flood insurance is optional unless the property is backed by a federal government-insured loan. So if you're using an FHA loan, for example, and your property is in a high-risk flood zone, then you're required to buy flood insurance. It's a federal law that protects U.S. taxpayers. But flood insurance can be a costly surprise to a home buyer on a tight budget. So in the 1990s, California made the FEMA high-risk flood zone a statutory disclosure requirement. Under the state's NHD law, the seller's agent, or the seller, if acting without an agent, must disclose to the buyer if any portion of the property is in any Zone A or V on a flood map. Those map zones define the Special Flood Hazard Area, or the SFHA. Zone A means high-risk stream flooding, and Zone V means high-risk coastal flooding. And they both represent the so-called 100-year floodplain, where there's a 1 in 100 chance in any given year of flooding at or above the expected level of the 100-year base flood event. Now, here's a very important detail. California's disclosure requirement for the SFHA applies to any portion of the parcel, whereas FEMA's flood insurance requirement applies only to the structure on that parcel. So, for example, if a portion of the parcel is in the SFHA, but the structure is not in, then flood insurance typically is not required under federal law. Does the lender still require the flood insurance? Maybe so. It's their money, so it's their terms. Where just a part of the property is in the SFHA, you can find out if the structure is in by getting a FEMA flood determination certificate. In a case like that, NHD reports from First American NHD, or JCPLGS, will include that flood cert at no additional charge. So there you have it. Any Zone A or V on a FEMA flood map is a Special Flood Hazard Area, also called the SFHA, or 100-year floodplain. The SFHA has a 1 in 100 chance of flooding in any given year, and under California's NHD law, disclosure is required if the parcel intersects the SFHA. And under federal law, flood insurance is required if the structure is in the SFHA and is financed with a federally backed mortgage. To learn more about the other types of natural hazard disclosures, check out the other episodes in our NHD Academy library. Visit our website, click on the Training Videos tab in the top menu, and watch all the episodes there. We'll see you next time.